All right, let's dive into this. The French Revolution. Love it.
Big topic.
It is,
Mm.
it is. And you've given us quite a few sources here, some Wikipedia. Looks like we got some snippets from the Royal Museum's Greenwich, and a really nice overview from history.com.
Sounds like a good mix.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is going to be good. So I think with this deep dive, we're going to kind of go beyond just the sort of like, the surface level of like, the storming of the Bastille and really like dig into the causes and the key players and the events that, really shaped not just France, but, the world.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, this is one of those huge turning points in history, right? It's not just a French
Mhm.
story, it's a global story.
It is. It is. Okay, so I think maybe a good place to start is to kind of like set the stage. So France in the 1780s, not exactly like a picture of liberté, égalité, fraternité, right?
Not quite, not yet. I mean,
Yeah.
you've got this system, the ancien regime,
Right.
and it's pretty rigid. You've got the first estate, the clergy, the second estate, the
Yeah.
nobility,
Right.
and then, well, everybody else
Well,
gets crammed into the
That's
third
like the
estate.
leftovers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the first two estates, they weren't exactly pulling their weight, especially when it came to taxes.
No, no, not at all. And, speaking of taxes, like these cahiers de doléances that you sent, fascinating stuff. These were like basically lists of grievances that the
Right.
Third Estate drew up leading up to the revolution.
Petitions.
Yeah, yeah. And reading through these things, you really get a sense of how much anger and frustration was bubbling under the surface.
Oh, yeah.
Like it was just like a powder keg ready to explode.
Wait, can you imagine you're working your tail off
Yeah.
and a big chunk of what you earn is going straight to these guys who aren't contributing?
Right.
It's like the definition of unfair.
Total taxation without representation.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just taxes either. I mean, you had these feudal dues, which was basically like, you're paying for the privilege of working land that you don't even own.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
I mean, talk about adding insult to injury.
It's true, it's true. So you've got this like, this simmering resentment, and then to make matters worse, France is just like hemorrhaging money, right? They got this crazy war.
So this wars, yeah.
Lavish court spending.
Yeah, the royal court was living large.
Yeah, living it up
Yeah.
while, everyone else is struggling. And Louis the 16th, he knew that things had to change, right?
He tried. I mean, he wasn't completely oblivious.
Yeah.
He attempted some financial reforms, but he ran smack into these parliaments, these regional courts,
Parliaments, yeah.
which were basically packed with nobles.
Right, yeah.
And they had this power, basically, to block the king's decrees.
Talk about a system that's built for gridlock.
Yeah. And they saw any reform as a threat to their own power.
Of course, of course.
So they basically shut it down.
So, I mean, it's like Louis is stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? The country's on the verge of bankruptcy, and then the people are getting restless.
They were more than restless.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I was reading in this Wikipedia article, there were something like 25
Whoa.
new political pamphlets being published every single week during this time.
Really? Wow. That's a lot.
Oh, yeah. So, you could just imagine the debates that were raging in coffee houses and salons, on street corners.
Oh, yeah. Like the public sphere was just alive with these ideas.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just, idle chatter. You've got Enlightenment ideas,
Right.
like spreading like wildfire. You've got the American Revolution. People are seeing
Yeah.
that
Success.
change is possible.
Yeah.
They're starting to believe that they can actually create a better world.
Right.
So the pressure's building, and finally, in 1789, Louis does something pretty radical.
Okay.
He calls for a meeting of the Estates General.
Okay, and remind me. Now the Estates General, this is a representative body that hadn't met in over 170 years.
That's right. Over a century and a half.
Wow. Okay.
So this is a big deal.
Yeah, me kidding.
He's basically grasping at straws at this point.
Yeah, right. So this Estates General, this is where things start to get really interesting, right? Because the Third Estate, even though they represent like the vast majority of the population,
I have 98%.
crazy. The way the voting was set up, they were basically guaranteed to be outvoted by the First and Second Estate. So it's like kind of rigged.
Yeah, like what's the point of even having them there, right?
Right.
And the members of the Third Estate, they were not having it.
No, I bet not.
They demanded a fairer system, but the king and the the privileged classes, they just dug in their heels.
Ah, so it's like this big standoff,
I was.
and then it's their defiance. That refusal to just, accept this raw deal that leads them to break away and declare themselves the National Assembly, which is basically, like dropping the mic, walking off the stage and being like, "We are France."
It was a power move, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
And they were drawing on some pretty powerful ideas. You had folks like Abbé Sieyès, his pamphlet, What is the Third Estate? It was hugely influential.
Oh, I've heard of that. Yeah.
He was basically saying, look, the Third Estate, they are the nation.
Right. Right.
They're the ones who do the work. They're the ones who pay the taxes. They're the ones who should have the power.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's amazing to think about the courage it must have taken to stand up to, the king, the entire power structure of France.
They're risking everything. It's
Ah.
not just about taxes anymore, right? This is about who gets to call the shots.
Yeah. This is about the fundamentals.
Yeah. And the king's response, well, let's just say it wasn't exactly what the people were hoping for. He starts amassing troops around Paris, which, of course, just fuels all these rumors that he's planning to crush the National Assembly.
Yeah.
People are terrified. I mean, they've just taken this huge leap of faith.
Right.
And now it looks like the king's going to come down on them with the full force of the military.
Right. And it's this fear, this sense of impending doom that leads to the storming of the Bastille on July 14th, 1789.
Right. I mean, the Bastille, this fortress, it was a symbol of royal tyranny.
Right.
And so when the people of Paris hear about these troop movements, they panic.
Yeah.
They decide they're not going to wait around to be slaughtered. So they storm the Bastille, seize weapons, free the prisoners.
I mean, I get chills just thinking about it.
It's such a powerful moment.
It is.
I mean, it really captures that raw energy of the revolution.
Right.
The people saying, no more. We're not going to take this anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
And this message, it spreads like wildfire throughout the country. It triggers what's known as the Great Fear.
Okay, so the Great Fear. What exactly was that?
Well, it was this wave of panic and paranoia that gripped the countryside. Rumors were flying about aristocratic plots to massacre peasants.
Really?
Oh, yeah. People were terrified. They armed themselves, they formed militias, and they started attacking noble estates.
It sounds like utter chaos.
It was. The whole country was on edge.
Yeah.
And the National Assembly, they realized they've got to do something.
Right.
They can't just sit back and watch the country descend into anarchy.
Yeah, they're in a tough spot.
They are. So they make a bold move. In August of 1789, they passed a series of decrees.
Okay.
And the most radical of these was the abolition of feudalism.
Whoa, hold on. They just abolished feudalism, just like that.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Overnight, centuries of, privileges, obligations, all gone.
I mean, that's a complete upending of the social order.
Yeah, you said it. It was seismic. The nobility, they lose their economic base,
Right.
their power, their status.
Just like that. Wow.
It's just gone.
The revolution's moving fast.
It's moving at lightning speed.
Yeah, it is.
And this is just the beginning, right? The fall of the Bastille, the Great Fear, the abolition of feudalism. These are just the opening acts of what's going to become one of the most tumultuous, most consequential periods in history.
It is. I mean, you can already see how much changed in such a short amount of time.
And we're just getting started.
Right. It's clear that, things they're moving fast and they're not slowing down anytime soon. Buckle up, everybody. So last time we were talking about how, France is just on the edge. You've got the storming of the Bastille, the Great Fear sweeping through the countryside, the abolition of feudalism. It's just, wow, so much change in such a short amount of time.
It's mind-boggling, right? And all this is happening while these Enlightenment ideas are just, swirling around.
Right.
This emphasis on reason and individual rights, limits on government power. All this is feeding into the revolutionary fervor.
Yeah, it's like the perfect storm.
It is. And so the big question becomes, okay, what kind of France is going to emerge from this?
Right.
Is it going to be a constitutional monarchy?
A republic.
What's the end game?
Exactly. And in 1791, they try to figure that out, the National Assembly. They draft a constitution.
Okay.
And it aims to create a constitutional monarchy. So they're trying to bridge that gap between the old order and this new vision.
Okay, so, but with the king still in power, though, right?
Yeah. But his power is seriously curtailed.
Okay.
You've got a legislative assembly now. Voting rights are expanded. It's a compromise.
A compromise.
Right.
Right. But, I mean, not everyone was thrilled about this, were they?
Oh, no. No, not at all. You have groups like the Jacobins who
Yeah.
are much more radical. They see the monarchy as just fundamentally incompatible
Yeah.
with the revolution,
Yeah.
right? They want a republic, a clean break.
Right, right.
And then, of course, you have the folks who, want to go back to the old ways.
Right, the counter-revolutionaries. Yeah. They see the revolution as this terrifying, destructive force.
Yeah. So it's like you've got all these different factions,
Yeah.
all these competing visions for the future. And then, as if things weren't complicated enough, France ends up at war.
Right. In 1792, France declares war on Austria. Later on, Prussia and Britain join the fight.
Yeah, because they were scared.
Terrified. They saw the French Revolution as this dangerous idea that could spread.
Like a virus.
Yeah, exactly. They wanted to crush it before it infected their own countries.
So you've got revolution at home, war abroad. Talk about a powder keg.
It was a really volatile situation. And this is when things take a very dark turn.
Yeah, the September massacres. I mean, that was just horrific.
It was a brutal, brutal episode. I mean, you got the enemy at the gates. Rumors are spreading about counter-revolutionary plots. People are they're gripped by fear and paranoia. Mobs in Paris, they storm the prisons.
Yeah.
They massacre thousands of prisoners, many of whom were probably innocent.
It's like a reminder that revolutions, even when they're fought for, liberty and equality, they can have this really dark side.
Absolutely. And it's not just the mob violence. The revolution itself is becoming more radical.
Yeah.
The monarchy is abolished. Louis VI, he's put on trial for treason.
And in 1793,
Then he's executed.
wow, the
There's
king, the symbol of the old regime, gone.
It's a point of no return.
Yeah, there's no going back now. But France is a republic, right?
Yes, but it's a republic facing huge challenges.
Yeah.
War, internal divisions, this constant fear and suspicion.
Right.
And this is the backdrop against which the Reign of Terror unfolds.
Right, the Reign of Terror. I mean, it's one of those things, everybody's heard of it, but I think it's also often misunderstood.
Yeah.
Like, how did a revolution that started with these really high-minded ideals descend into such a bloodbath?
Well, you got to remember the context. You've got war, internal rebellions, this constant fear that the revolution is about to be overthrown. The Committee of Public Safety, led by Robespierre, they're created to protect the revolution.
Right, so they believed that they were saving the revolution.
Exactly.
Even if it meant, resorting to these really extreme measures.
And they did resort to extreme measures.
Yeah.
I mean, the guillotine was working overtime.
Thousands executed.
Thousands. Often with very little evidence.
Right, right.
Or due process. Anyone suspected of being an enemy of the revolution.
Right.
Aristocrats, clergy, even moderate revolutionaries, they could become a target.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, even Danton, who was like a key figure in the early revolution,
Right.
he ends up getting accused of treason and sent to the guillotine.
It's the revolution devouring its own children.
Yeah.
This cycle of fear and paranoia just spiraling out of control.
But eventually it does end, right? I mean, even Robespierre couldn't hold on forever.
Right. As the terror spirals, more and more people start to turn against Robespierre.
Yeah.
He overplayed his hand.
Yeah, I guess so.
And in July 1794, he's arrested
Okay.
and executed. And this marks the end of the Reign of Terror.
Okay. So what happens next?
Mm.
Does France finally find some peace and stability?
Well, not quite. The Thermidorian reaction, as it's called, it ushers in a more moderate phase.
Yeah.
But France is still dealing with the trauma of the terror.
Right.
The war's still going on. There's still deep divisions.
Yeah, right.
The Directory, the new government, it's weak. It's
Yeah.
ineffective.
Hmm.
And all this creates a perfect opportunity for a strong man to emerge.
Right. And I think we all know who's waiting in the wings.
Napoleon Bonaparte, a
Yeah.
brilliant military strategist.
Yeah.
He'd already made a name for himself in the Revolutionary Wars.
Right.
And as France is struggling, he sees his chance.
Right. So the stage is set
It is.
for the final act of the French Revolution.
Yeah. And it's going to be a dramatic one.
Oh, I bet. I mean, even though, these ideals of liberty, equality, fraternity, they're still there.
They are. They're powerful.
Yeah, but the revolution itself,
Yeah.
it's about to take a very dramatic and unexpected turn.
That's for sure.
So we left off with France kind of just spent, years of revolution, violence, upheaval. The terror's over, but things are still so uncertain.
Yeah. There's this power vacuum.
Right.
And into that vacuum steps Napoleon Bonaparte.
Of course. Of course. I mean, he's such a larger-than-life figure, He really embodies both, like, the promise and the contradictions of the revolution.
Absolutely. He was a master of, reading the room, so to speak. He knew what people wanted.
And what do they want?
Stability,
Mm.
order, an end to the chaos.
Right, yeah. I mean, after all they'd been through.
Exactly. And Napoleon, he presents himself as the guy who can deliver that.
The savior.
Right. And to a lot of people, he was.
Right, right. And it's interesting, right? Because he used the energy of the revolution to grab power for himself. He wasn't an aristocrat. He came from, relatively humble beginnings.
This is a self-made man.
Yeah, like the embodiment of that revolutionary ideal.
Yeah, he very carefully cultivated this image.
Yeah, I bet.
But at the same time, he was busy dismantling a lot of those democratic institutions.
Right.
That the revolution had, fought so hard to create. He establishes the consulate, makes himself first consul.
Right.
And then, well, he crowns himself emperor.
So it's like he brings it full circle.
Yeah, in a way.
Yeah.
Back to authoritarian rule.
Yeah. But did he totally erase the revolution's legacy? I mean, like, did the ideals of liberty, equality, fraternity just, like, disappear?
Not at all.
Yeah.
I mean, Napoleon might have been emperor, but he was still a product of the revolution,
Yeah.
And a lot of its core principles, they stayed with him. They influenced his policies. Like, he introduced some significant legal reforms.
Like what?
Most notably, the Napoleonic Code.
Right, which is still around today.
Exactly. And it enshrines things like equality before the law, the right to property.
Huh. So it's like he's codifying these revolutionary ideals.
Right.
Even as he's, becoming this emperor.
It's complicated.
It is. What about his impact on the rest of Europe? I mean, he went on these massive conquests.
Yeah.
And didn't that help spread these revolutionary ideas beyond France?
Absolutely. I mean, the Napoleonic Wars were devastating, of course.
Yeah, so many lives lost.
But, wherever he went, Napoleon, he abolished feudalism, introduced legal reforms, shook up the old order.
So, in a way, he's spreading the revolution.
Yeah, even as he's trying to build his empire.
It's wild. It really is. So, okay, Napoleon brings the French Revolution to an end.
In a way, yeah.
But in a lot of ways, he also makes sure that its legacy lives on.
Yeah, it's a real paradox.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
What about the long-term impact on France? How did the revolution change things there?
Oh, it totally reshaped French society. The aristocracy, the church, they lose their power, their grip on everything. The whole idea of privilege based on birth, that's out.
Yeah.
At least in theory.
Right.
It's replaced by the idea of equality before the law.
Yeah, and that's huge.
It is. And a new sense of national identity emerges.
Based on, like, citizenship.
Exactly.
Not on, who your feudal lord is.
Right.
Right.
Right. I mean, it's just incredible to think about how much changed, like in the span of a decade.
It was a complete transformation.
And what about the impact on political thought? I mean, the French Revolution, it really set the stage for modern democracy, didn't it?
It provided a model. It showed that it was possible. Right?
To overthrow the old order.
Yeah, to fight for liberty, for equality, for government that represents the people.
Right. And those ideas, they've inspired so many movements.
Countless movements.
All around the world. For freedom, for justice.
Yeah, for a better world.
Exactly.
Yeah. And, it's a legacy that we're still grappling with today, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we see echoes of the French Revolution in all these movements for social justice, for greater democracy, for an end to oppression.
It's a reminder that, the fight for those things, it's never really over.
It's a constant struggle.
Man, this has been an amazing deep dive.
It has.
Really. I mean, we've covered so much ground.
We have the causes, the key events, the triumphs, the tragedies.
Yeah. And it's a story that's full of, complexities and contradictions.
And it's not just a story about the past, right? It still resonates with us today.
Yeah, it does. It challenges us to think critically about the world.
Yeah.
To fight for what we believe in.
Absolutely.
To never take our freedoms for granted.
Well said.
Thanks for guiding us through this. This was really something.
My pleasure.
And to all of you listening, we hope you enjoyed this deep dive as much as we did.
Yeah, it's a fascinating period of history.
It is. And, there's always more to learn.
So you keep exploring.
Exactly.